welcome to another episode of From the Horsebox, where I'm delighted to be able to have another chance to chat to Jonathan Greatorex at the Hand at Llanarmon. So good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning, Claire.
Thank you very much for sparing me the time again in this oasis of good food and warm welcome in the Ceiriog Valley in Wales.
Oh, bless you. It's my absolute pleasure to be back with you.
Thank you. Now, last time we chatted, there was an awful lot to say about the restaurant, the hospitality industry is particular to Wales. So have things improved since we chatted?
No, I wouldn't say massively, if I'm honest.
I was wondering if you'd say that.
I mean, obviously, as you know, since we last chatted, we've had a change of government in Westminster who had very different taxation ideas to perhaps the rest of the country. And you know, I like lots of hospitality businesses at the moment. You know, the national insurance rise has been a real hammer blow, you know, to the industry. You know, some figures are saying that about 9,000 pubs are going to close this year. I know we've already lost, I think, over 1,000 in the last year. So it's been a problem, and that coupled with obviously, like, you know, increased food prices and energy prices, it's a sort of perfect storm, really. But yeah, but we're still here, we're still smiling, and we're still carrying on pretty much.
This must be across the board, because I'm catching up with Clarkson's Farm and him buying a pub. So, you know, he was highlighting also, you know, all the pubs that he went to see to buy his pub, and they're talking about the jobs that went with it, and, you know, because it is very often the first port of call for young people to get, you know, a formal job and get into the sort of structure of employment, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the thing about hospitality industry is that, you know, it's for a lot of people, it's not only just their first step into the world of work, you know, whether it's, you know, washing dishes or carrying plates or working behind a bar, but actually it's probably the most transportable skill on the planet. I mean, you can wake up in a town in Memphis, Tennessee, and if you can pull a pint, you'll get a job in a bar. And I can't think of any other industry where that skill set is so transportable. Plus, of course, you know, we are the most diverse employer. We've got the most diverse bunch of people who work for the sector. So it's a really important sector. And here in Wales, you know, we employ 130,000 people in hospitality, and that's a staggering sum. We're the third biggest employer in Wales.
So what is the dialogue like when I know you go down to Cardiff?
It's a very sort of strange place in Wales at the moment. I mean, there's talk of introducing this tourist tax, the visitor levy, which nobody really wants. I mean, a couple of areas want it. I think Ceredigion and Gwynedd are quite keen on it, but the vast majority of the people, you know, really don't want it. And the general feeling is, and this is one that I bring up quite regularly. I was talking at a conference in Llangollen a couple of weeks ago, where the feeling is that Welsh Government really doesn't want tourism. You know, we've got Visit Wales, which is a government sort of quango. It's a sort of government body with, as far as I can tell, no real metrics or no real targets that it's got to hit. And I described, you know, Visit Wales as a self-licking ice cream, because it exists just for its own existence, really, and it doesn't seem to do very much other than sort of promote itself. So I think there's a lot of potential. I'm as you know, keen. I'm very proud of everything that we offer hospitality wise here in Wales. I think we've got the most miraculous country on the planet, and I think we need to start celebrating it rather than trying to put obstacles in the way.
Do you think it helps that you're a Welsh speaker? Does that carry a lot of clout? Yeah,
I don't know if it does in Cardiff, because not a lot of people, you know, speak Welsh in Cardiff. It's certainly not massively spoken down there, but I think it's important. I think it gives, even though I don't sound Welsh, you know, I was born and brought up in Wales, and I think it does perhaps give you a level of authority and a level of sort of credence that you know, you're not just sort of some incomer who's trying to talk about something they don't know anything about.
There's a lot of talk about implementing change, isn't there, in the political world? And I mean, is there any chance of, you know, there's a lot of sectors in the countryside that are protesting at what is happening to them. Do you think there's any chance of any sort of collaboration across the sort of food, farming, restaurant sectors,
Yeah.
with small businesses, because, everybody seems to be quite upset.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we organise. I was involved in organising a number of cross-industry sort of talks over the last couple of years. From everything from the release of game birds to the tragic sort of farm tax that this government's come up with, which is absolutely abhorrent. So. I think we are working together, and I think certainly in Wales there's a lot of pride for Welsh produce, which we push at all costs, and rightly so. It's we've got some of the finest produce on the planet here in Wales, and to be able to showcase that is brilliant. So to be able to push Welsh farming, to be able to push Welsh food for us is very, very important.
Do you think there needs to be some sort of catalyst for all that to sort of fuse together?
I think there will be. I think you have to be very careful what we say these days.
Yes, you do, yes.
Because, we do live in a society where you say the wrong things, and you can certainly find yourselves in more trouble for saying what is either a joke or fairly innocent comment. And don't get me wrong, there were some abhorrent comments, being made on social media about things, and I no way do I condone those. But I think we have to be very careful to say that, yes, there needs to be some sort of, sort of great big sort of push against the government, because it's very clear that the government don't like that. And that's a concern, really. So I think, so long as we can stick within the laws, I think it's very clear that this administration are not going to listen. I mean, we've had 26 years of it here in Wales, and it's very clear that they weren't listening. And I don't think Westminster are listening now. And I don't know what the solution is, unfortunately.
Do you think a shortage of food would sharpen people's awareness?
I think a shortage of food is going to happen. I think it is, because I think, farmers can't carry on, losing money to produce food, especially when, there's so much pressure now to plant, crops that you can't be used as food, such as rye and all the sort of stuff which, may be good for the environment, may be good for the soil. But ultimately, a farmer who is covering ground in non-edible crops to get, sort of grants, or worse still, to cover them in solar panels and, or wind farms and things like that. I think, we've got to be very careful that our food security, we've really got to be on top of this, because the last time that we as a nation sort of dropped the food security ball was in the 1930s, and we all know how that ended up, where they wanted people out of the fields and into the factories, and because we always said, well, we can always import the food, and that, as we know, doesn't work. So yeah, food security is very important, I think, as a nation.
I mean, you and I talking, and we do want to promote British food and the Welsh food and the highest quality produce. But do you travel abroad to sort of collect ideas for your business? And do you look at sort of how other people do it in a more diverse, context?
Yeah, I mean, I always say anyone who works in the hospitality industry, we're all the world's worst thieves, because we steal ideas from everyone else. And in fact, that sounds as though that we're
you
sort of stealing.
You can't steal recipes, apparently. I was listening on the radio. Recipes are not copyrighted. No. So gathering ideas is very worthwhile.
And it's interesting that as an industry, I mean, we do share best practice. We do talk. We have some very good relationship with other hotels who will ring us up and say, "Oh, Jonathan, have you got a policy on this? Have you got this?" And vice versa. I can call them up and say, "What have you got any bits of paper on this, or what are your thoughts on this?" So we do talk. We do work. We have lots of sort of WhatsApp groups, and some really big, high hitting industry names on some of these groups that all working for a common good. So that's good. That is great, and that's really, really good news.
Are you able to tell us any particular finds that you've had and any travels that you've been on since we last spoke in January 24? So have you been on any expeditions or?
Well, I've done I did. Yes, I mean, I did. What have we done? I did a transatlantic cruise, which was very exciting. That was on Cunard. That was. It was something that I'd always wanted to do, and this time last year, did it, and absolutely loved it. And there was some fab. I mean, it was very, very great, very opulent, very lovely.
Sounds wonderful.
It really was.
Tell me about the opulence.
The opulence was just extraordinary. I mean, the best thing about it was that, of course, you're at sea for 7 days, which admittedly isn't everyone's cup of tea, but what it does do is it gives you enforced rest, and you know there's so much to do on board these liners. You know, you certainly would never be bored.
And do you meet people, or do you
Yes.
very much keep to yourself?
No. Met and spoke and made lots of friends. Actually,
Yeah.
really, really good. And again, you know, quite quickly, you talk to the waitress and the maitre d's and everyone just sort of say, look, I'm in the industry, and we share the same goals and ideals. And have you done this? Have you seen this? Have you thought about that? Have you come across this product?
Have you got any tips for me? Things that I could pick up?
You can pick up. You mean from the cruise, or just generally speaking?
Generally, yeah, dining and what people enjoy. Are there any things that you found that would be particularly useful to you or to?
I mean, again, going back to our local amazing product. I mean, I have to give a shout out to our incredible beef and pork supplier. That's Moor Farm in Baschurch in Shropshire, who are just exceptional. They're really, really brilliant, and they look after us and make sure we've got just some of the best products on the planet. So a big shout out to them. They're absolutely brilliant. Tip wise, what would be my big tip? Coffee bags. I can't stand instant coffee. I have a thing
I'm
about.
afraid I'm with you.
Yeah,
on
I
that.
can't stand the little dried things that look like gravy granules that you get in their sachets. So the Little Coffee Bag Company are a company actually in Shropshire who make. As you have a tea bag, you can have a coffee bag, and it's filled with fresh coffee, and each one's individually wrapped, and it's brilliant, absolutely genius. So whenever I'm travelling, I'll always chuck half a dozen of those in my case. So that Little Coffee Bag Company is definitely a top tip.
I was listening to a conversation on a podcast about this huge demand in the world now for coffee.
Yeah.
That the suppliers and the growers, and there's going to be a shortage of coffee.
Well, we've seen a significant increase in the price of coffee to us.
Yes.
You know, it's gone up quite significantly. And again, we're going to see more of this. You know, as you squeeze farming and make it tougher, you know, inevitably the prices are going to go up, and it's unfortunately it's a fact of life. And I wish that the powers that be would wake up to it.
I do listen to a lot of podcasters.
Yeah.
Where I do my research. One I listened to was with Marcus Waring, and he's a huge advocate of British food, and he only serves really British food in his recipes and his restaurants. And he was talking about the organisation of the kitchen and the structure of it. And I was quite interested in this because there is sort of like an army-like, and I think is it called the battalion method?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you see that?
Well, we're obviously a much smaller organisation than the Marcus.
I'm sure you have a battalion.
But we do have very much sections, and you know, everyone runs a section. Every dish that comes out of our kitchen is overseen by our head chef. You know, it's all finished by him or whoever the head chef on duty is. So it is a very well structured, very well organised machine. And you know, any time during a service, you know, we can have, even on a quiet service, we can have 3 or 4 people in the kitchen, and that can go up to sort of 6 at a weekend. And that's, as I said, we're a very small organisation, but you need those people to guarantee the quality of food, and that's the key. I mean, quality is absolutely everything.
Have you got a favourite TV chef, celebrity chef?
I do love Gordon Ramsay. I had the privilege of working with him in a previous life, when I did some consultancy work for London Partners, actually, who visit London, and he created a video. And hand on heart, I've never worked with a more generous of his time person in my life. He you know, the whole front that comes on the television
That's something
is
TV does to you, probably.
Is very, very different to the very gentle, very thoughtful person that you meet when you meet Gordon. So yes, I would say that. And John Williams of the Ritz is a great fan of mine because I love the Ritz and I think it's absolutely fantastic. And the other great chef is a gentleman called Brian Webb, who used to run a hotel not far from here called Tuddingclan. He held a Michelin star for years, and if you're very, very lucky, he's currently doing a little 3-month guest pop-up at a restaurant in Chester called Covino, and he's brilliant. So yeah, Brian Webb, another superstar.
That posh food, does that mean healthy and better than normal? I mean, how would you sort of rate the different levels that you can?
I think it's the
serve?
Execution of the dish. I mean, if I could cook you, give me a piece of meat, I could cook you a steak. And I'm sure it would be nice. If you gave my chef that exact same piece of meat, it will taste a million times better. And that's what you've got. You've got a skill. Chefs are artists, and that's what you're getting. And the further up the tree, you get more refinement, you get more skill, you get more presentation, and that's where it starts to differentiate. And of course, the ingredient costs are completely different. We all know you could go out and buy a Namibian piece of beef for tuppence halfpenny, or you could buy a Welsh prime piece of beef for a lot more money. And of course, the difference between the two you can't begin to quantify it. It's completely different. So yeah, the quality is where it is at. Really.
Even with a poached egg, I mean, it doesn't have to be scallops and smoked salmon. No. They would even make a difference too.
Yeah, I mean, just boil an egg that's come straight out of your neighbour's chicken and one that you bought from the shelf of a major supermarket, and there's just no difference. It is that the animal husbandry is really where it's at.
Jonathan, last time after we spoke, I got home and found online that you had taken on a council in London for sort of fraud, really, and you won.
Yes.
So was that the beginning as a sort of campaign for standing up for people?
Yes. It's called a moving traffic contravention, which means that basically it was been alleged that I'd failed to give way to an oncoming car at one of these pinch points in the road. And I got sent a fine for 80 quid or 100 quid or whatever it was. I forget the number now. And I appealed it, and they sort of said, "Oh no, tough luck. You did it." So I then asked, you could pay £20 to see the video footage of the alleged contravention, and it was very clear that no contravention stopped, or taken place, I should say. So I appealed to the parking adjudicator, and in the meantime, this ended up in the press, and the thing that drove me forward was I got contacted by this gentleman who lived in South London, who had used his life savings of £3,000 to buy a car, a second-hand car, so that he could drive his wife every day to King's College Hospital for radiotherapy. And they'd had a fine of £80, and he'd got in touch with me, and he'd explained that this was more than 2 weeks' worth of their shopping that they would spend on food, and that they really couldn't afford it, and that sort of drove me forward really to drive it, because it was very, very wrong, and it ended up quite funnily with me freezing Lambeth Council's assets, actually, because they failed to pay the fine that the I should say the expenses that the adjudicator awarded me in time. So that was a very interesting time, but it drove me on, and so I've been involved in a few other campaigns. So Work Bully, the campaign to end workplace bullying, that happened after my wife had a really tough time in a job. And so that keeps me out of mischief to an extent as well. But I just despise bullies, really. I suppose they bring out the very worst in me.
I think is that also from your teaching as well?
Yes.
I think that is something that concerns a lot of teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've all, every teacher, you've witnessed it, you've seen it, and you know that in a way it's sort of pernicious. It happens very quietly behind the scenes, and I've got friends who've got children who really suffered at the hands of just really quite unpleasant other children, and it's not necessarily bullying in some cases, but I think bullying is a very sort of specific thing, and it shouldn't really be happening in modern day society.
Have you any thoughts on, a good thing to do if you are bullied?
Well, yeah, the law's quite clear. Actually, the Protection from Harassment Act, it comes in and protects you very, very clearly from bullying. And harassment is deliberately not described in law. Okay, so you can't turn around and say, well, harassment is if someone threatened me with a blue screwdriver, that's harassment. It's kept deliberately very, very, very woolly, the laws on harassment, because to cover the fact that, oh, hang on a minute, no, I harassed him with a red screwdriver, therefore it doesn't come in under the context of the law. So the law's kept very, very woolly. So actually, any form of bullying is harassment. Any form of unwanted action is harassment, and there are ways that you can use the act quite powerfully to make it stop, because it is actually a criminal offence.
So you can go to the police if you are regularly.
If you're being bullied at work, it is a criminal offence, and that's the point. People, they'll try to say, "Oh no, it's a civil offence." It isn't. It's a criminal offence. And actually, you can,
across the board.
Across the board. If you go to, I can't remember what the website is, but if you put in my name and work bully, you'll come up with it just details. It doesn't offer anyone any advice. It just says that this is what the law says, and this is what you should do, and don't put up with it. Is the advice, very much so.
Looking back at your childhood, is there anything which gave you this strength to want to speak up for this? Injustice against disability, race, class, whatever it is.
I was very blessed. I went to a boarding school where we had people of all races, faiths, creeds, colours, and everyone just got on, and that was the extraordinary thing. We all just rubbed along well together, because it didn't matter what your religious belief was, what your colour of your skin was. We had that great joy of innocence, I suppose. And so it was a bit of a shock when you got out to the real world and you sort of see that there is this great unpleasantness pervading out there. So I think yeah, partly it was driven with that, but I've always hated bullying. I've always stood up for my friends who were having a tough time, because I think that's our duty.
I agree with you. Going back to your teaching, you were a music teacher, composer, choral musician.
Yep.
How do you sustain your musical side these days?
Well, I'm a very proud Freemason, and I play the organ for them. So I play for their big carol service in Shrewsbury Abbey every year, and I play quite regularly for various events for them. So that's me keeping my hand in. I don't do anywhere near as much as I used to. I mean, when I was doing it professionally, you'd be behind the piano for 5-6 hours a day. I'm lucky if I do that a month now. But yeah. I mean, that's how I keep it. And I'll play for friends' weddings as well.
Well, the tip you gave me last time, I managed to find a clip of the recording and played it, and a lot of people really loved I Was Glad, or the most uplifting, joyous few bars of music that you shared with us. Can you pinpoint anything else? Maybe a bit more modern, or is there anything else that touches you at all?
Oh gosh, there's all sorts. So I've got the most eclectic mix of music. And if you look at my iPhone, you'd think, my God, what is going on here? I have a great love of from the English choral music. I'm a great Deacon Blue fan. I think Dignity by Deacon Blue is one of the most inspirational songs. Dignity by Deacon Blue, one of the inspirational songs about a man who sweeps a street, who very secretly has saved his money, and he buys himself a dinghy, and the dinghy's called Dignity, and he's going to sail this ship around the sort of coasts of the world and everywhere else. And what's important about it is that you'll notice it starts off as a dinghy, but ends up as a ship called Dignity. And there's a lesson that everyone can.
Oh, I should definitely have a look at that. Yeah. Thank you very much. Right, I'd like to move to some quick fire questions. Right, Jonathan. A food you would never eat.
Squid. No.
Quite honestly, like squid.
Oh no! Sorry, no squid.
Someone you would love to share a table with, living or dead, if you were to share a meal.
It would. Do you know what? I often think about this. Do you know it would have to be my grandfather? I think he died in about 1940 something, He was quite old when he had my mother, and my mother was older when she had me. And he had the most extraordinary life. He was the son of a farmhand in Hampshire, who his father died, and at that stage, the wife and children were literally kicked out of the houses going back to the 1800s here. And she moved to Wrexham. This was my grandfather's mother. Moved to live with her sister in Wrexham, and she got a job, I think, at Erddig, but we're not sure. She got a job in service, and she could take her daughter with her, but not her son. So my grandfather, the son, had to go down into the workhouse, went down to the mines, and my great grandmother saved and rented a room and got him out of the workhouse, which I think was no mean feat, and he then had this extraordinary work ethic and founded various bakeries. And I would love to have met him, because by all accounts he was an extraordinary man. So there we are.
That takes a grit that's very humbling to listen to. Next one, red flag in a customer. Asking for ketchup, or what is it?
No, ketchup gone open with ketchup.
Like ketchup,
The red flag is that I've travelled the world. When they say I've travelled the world, I've travelled all over the world. I've travelled to restaurants all over the world, and you know that something is going to come after that. So yeah, I've travelled the world is usually a red flag, or a customer who had a terrible row before they've arrived.
And you can tell.
You can tell. Yes, you can tell. Yeah.
Do you see all of human life in human behaviour?
We do. You see. You see everything, certainly, and there are tales I could tell you, but I'm not going to.
I was looking for insights here. No.
But you never quite know what you're going to come across, and there are moments that surprise you for all the right reasons as well. We had we won't go into details, but we had quite a horrific incident where a family here in the village last year suffered a huge landslide into their house, and it took their house out. It was horrific. It was a young family, and we had some guests staying at that time, and the hand literally looked like a field hospital. There were children wrapped in blankets, covered in mud. It was horrific, because everyone just descended here, and we were a field hospital.
When did this happen?
This was towards the latter half of last year.
Goodness me.
And we had a guest staying at the time who showed such kindness, and he just said, whatever it takes, I'll help out, and that's lovely, because that's really quite reaffirming.
Most people are the best, aren't they?
There's
very few that disappoint.
Yeah.
What about, dining alone? How would you cope in your restaurant if there's somebody dining alone? Is that a common thing?
Very much so. And the one thing that we always do if someone's dining around is we will always take away the other chair and the other set of cutlery, so they don't feel uncomfortable, don't feel as though they should be with someone else. We always make a point of doing that, so that make them feel welcome. And it's very normal, because of course, even though we're out in the middle of nowhere, we're only sort of 12 minutes from Oswestry. So a lot of people have realised, a lot of business people in particular have realised, that they can either stay at a sort of, faceless, branded inn or hotel in Oswestry, or come and stay here.
Or they can upgrade.
And actually not for not a lot more money, really, as well. Nice food and sheets and everything else.
A joke or a motto you could share with us? I know you've done this before.
Oh, gosh.
Is there anything else which...
yes.
To you?
Well, yes, I can tell you this. I've just applied for a job, actually. I'm fitting mirrors. Well, it's a job I think I can see myself doing.
Fitting mirrors as home decor, or
no, it's a job I can see myself doing.
Jonathan, I'm sorry. I'm slow here.
I apologise to your listeners. That's a really bad joke, but
thank you ever so much for making me laugh as well. Thank you. Thank you for listening, and please share with your friends, which helps a lot. And I look forward to next month, when it could be you in the driving seat.